Hey everyone, Pastor George here with our Theolog for Wednesday, and we are continuing our series on heresies and heterodox and all that type of stuff. And today we are going to look at the medieval era. Now, of course, the medieval era, as I pointed out last week, was a different time. It was much less uh, focused on getting down the core messages of the faith and defining Christianity against variant streams, where it was really just like there was the truth, and then there were people that would try and change it, right, or introduce something new. And it's also the age that proves that there really is very little creativity when it comes to heresy. A lot of the same things are repeated over and over and over. And so today we're going to be looking at two groups that one is in the East and one is in the West. So East being Armenia and Bulgaria and like the Greek Orthodox regions, and the West being France, southern France particularly. But their heresy is essentially the exact same thing. In fact, many people believe that it came over with people trying to flee persecution from the East to the West eventually. And we're going to talk about a little how the church dealt with that in ways that was very different than in the past. So, the Bogomils are the first ones. Bogomil, Bogomil. Don't really remember what that means off the top of my head, but it might be related to the name of the leader. But these people who were talking about were active in the Eastern Orthodox regions, and many of what they said was very similar to the Gnostics. So if you want to remember what the Gnostics were saying, you can go down the playlist. You can hit all the Apologetics Wednesday stuff. Eventually, if you go back far enough, you'll run into the Gnostics. And the Gnostics essentially said that the God who created the world in the Old Testament is an evil God, right? Matter is bad. The New Testament is good. That's the good God. Jesus is the good God because it's all about the Spirit, right? It goes back to Plato and all this other type of stuff, right? It took Greek thought and trying to attach it to the Bible. All of that is stuff we've seen before, and the church had seen it before. And so what they said to these people was no, and they persecuted them, right, in the sense that they would kill them if they found them and stuff like that. And this caused many of them to take their stuff and flee and take their teachings and go west. And that was about a couple hundred years. So now that was like in the late 800s, 900s AD. Now I want you to take that and go to the 1200s AD. So there's a good bit of gap between these two times. And that heresy was able to end up being rooted in southern France, in these people that are known as the Cathars. And Cathar, in Greek, it's where we get catharsis. It means about coming to perfection, right? And so it was about being the perfect ones. And so in their correspondence, which we have, right? We have like letters and stuff like that. It was very popular among the nobility, especially. And they would refer to themselves as the true Christians and stuff like that. And they also had the exact same beliefs that an evil God created the world and there's a good God in the New Testament, and they battle it out, right? And that's the whole thing that's happened over the centuries. Of course, that's unfounded in Scripture. The church has stood against that. But the difference here is that it was rooted in the powerful, not necessarily those who are outside of the power. And so it ended up kind of spreading. And now the Duke of the region that this was in, Aquitaine or Occitan, southern France, was not very interested in, he was too busy trying to hold his realm together. And so he wasn't really interested in making sure everyone was following the correct doctrine, right? And so what ended up happening is that a crusade was called, and this is one that we usually forget about. It's called the Albigensian Crusade, which is just referring to the region that it's in, where Christian crusaders, who we usually think of as trying to go to the Holy Land and these other places, went to southern France and fought and destroyed the last of this Cathar movement. And it shows that this kind of turned away from trying to have like debate and kicking people out, which was kind of the normal way that Christianity had been operating, to a new way, which is usually killing people, right, just to solve the problem. Now, of course, it's easy for us to look on these things and go, wow, these people were so bad, they're killing people. And I do think that morally, I think that there's a lot of area there where we should we can stand in judgment and be like, listen, there's better ways to deal with these problems than killing them. But at the same time, just to put you in their shoes for a second, they're looking at these things happening and they're going, this is putting people's souls at risk, and we need to end it, right? And the best way to end it is to kill people. One of the things that you hear often, you hear this often from many places, and it's weirdly said, but the actual phrase that when people say it is you might hear it is kill them all and let God sort them out, right? Maybe you've heard that. That was actually said by a bishop in this crusade. And what had happened is the knights who were fighting had cornered the population of the city in the local church, right? And rather than going in and using the Inquisition to find out who really believed what and to find people that were actually heretics and people that weren't, the bishop simply said, let's kill everyone there and God will know who are his own, right? That's closer to what the Latin actually says. It's not let God sort them out. It's kill them all and God will know who are his own. That they get to the same point. And so they did that. And one of the interesting things again here is that Christians at the time were very skeptical of this. So it's not as though people did this unquestioningly. A lot of people found great reason to judge this bishop's decision very harshly, other Christians, right, saying that this wasn't a Christian thing, which you do not see in many other faiths. And I think that's very important. Maybe I'll do Theolog on that, in the history of that at some point. But you have them now putting people to the sword. And of course, like a lot of these things that these Catholics believe are things that the church has dealt with before. And we're going to see from this point forward that it becomes more and more about institutional power, and sometimes about doctrine. I mean, doctrine is a big part of it, but we're going to see next week with other medieval heresies that it's really less about really bad doctrine and more about challenging the church's authority. So in the terms of the Cathars and the Bogomils, yeah, their doctrine is bad and they're not Christian, right? Because they deny central truths about the Bible. But we're going to run into groups that would basically be precursors, early movements, early reform movements within the Western Church that would eventually lead to a split in the Western Church between Protestants and Catholics, right? And we'll talk more about that next week. So I hope this has been interesting to you, and I will see you guys tomorrow for Culture Thursdays. Peace out.